Tighter Insider Preseason Camp is sponsored by The Locker Room.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome into our Tighter Insider Preseason Fall Camp Practice Updates presented by The Locker Room. I'm Gary Harris along with Rodney Orr from TighterInsider.com. Day one, but practice number 2 tonight. Rodney, most of the newcomers, including the majority of the freshmen out here tonight. And I tell you what, you say it every year, the way they recruited Alabama, it's always a good-looking group. Some of those guys look like they're closer to being in the NFL than in college. But let's start with the lines of scrimmage. Both the offensive and defensive linemen, really impressive out there tonight. Yeah,
very impressive, Gary. You know, you start on the offensive line, guys like Ross Pierschbacher, J.C. Hassenauer, Josh Casher. Those guys certainly, you know, physically already really look good. Then you look on the defensive line. I mean, it is amazing when you look at Deshaun Hand, Josh Frazier, Johnny Dwight, who played at a small school in Georgia. I mean, he looks phenomenal. O.J. Smith out of Louisiana. All of those guys really look good on the defensive line. You know, Alabama already has some quality depth on the defensive line, but when you look at these guys, they kind of fit the bill of what we've seen over here the last several years with Nick Saban, the kind of defensive lineman he's bringing in. Very impressive, very athletic.
Speaking of athletic, a very athletic group of linebackers inside and outside.
Yeah, very impressive when you look at the outside guys working with Coach Lance Thompson. Rashawn Evans, a guy that everybody has been looking forward to seeing, the highly acclaimed linebacker out of Auburn. Tonight really showing some athleticism. When you just watch him, you can see how he moves. Christian Miller the same way out of South Carolina, another highly regarded outside linebacker, looked very good. I thought Jamie Mosley, the walk-on from Theodore, C.J. Mosley's younger brother, he showed some really good quickness and showed some length. He's long, so he's a guy, when you look down the road, he may be a guy that can really help Alabama at some point. On the inside, you look at Sean Dion Hamilton, guy that went through spring practice, so he's been around a while. He knows his way around and looks very impressive. You can tell he's been in the weight room in the program here at Alabama. And then Keith Holcomb, the local guy from Tuscaloosa Hillcrest, I thought he looked very athletic out there moving around. So I thought the linebackers, just athletically and just watching them move around, kind of lived up to billing.
And that young secondary group caught our eye as well. I want to ask you about David Cornwell with Bateman, Coker, and Sims all going this morning. Even though he went through spring, he got a lot of individual attention tonight with Lane Kiffin.
Well, and I think that's good for him because we talked about how he had come in the spring, Gary, and, you know, he really didn't have an opportunity to work one-on-one because he kind of just had to join in with the group. And now this gave him an opportunity tonight to kind of go through a practice, get one-on-one attention with Lane Kiffin. And when you look at David Cornwell, he's got all the tools, 6'5", 235, can move, got a strong arm. And I think when you start talking about the future, he's a guy that you start developing now for down the road.
Let's revisit some of the news from Coach Saban's press conference. Bad news, 3 really good defensive players, Brandon Ivory, Jaron Reed, Tim Williams, all suspended indefinitely for a violation of team rules. What does that mean for this team?
Well, I mean, it's a big disappointment because you got 2 guys, Jaron Reed and Brandon Ivory. Brandon Ivory's been a starter. Jaron Reed was expected to make a major impact, and he may still do that at some point. But I think when you look at it, it's really disappointing because he'd come here in the spring from junior college, made such a strong impact and a strong impression in the spring, and it was really thought that he would make a significant impact very early. So that's a disappointment. Losing Brandon Ivory, a guy who has been a starter, certainly, you know, that's never good. And then Tim Williams, he's a guy that has so much promise, just a sophomore, and, you know, he's a guy that can rush the passer, Gary, and that's what Alabama needs. The good thing is that Alabama does have quality depth at those positions and guys that can, you know, pick up the slack.
And hopefully those guys will be back soon. Real quickly, a couple other notes. We know Bo Scarbrough's status for now. Alabama's going to appeal his academic eligibility, hopefully get him enrolled in January.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's the goal right now. Coach Saban said that after the morning practice that hopefully they could get Bo here in January, as you mentioned. And also Montel McBride, the offensive lineman from Plant City, Florida, a freshman that should have reported tonight, but he will be headed to a junior college.
And finally, Leon Brown, the favorite to start at right guard, going to miss a couple of weeks with a foot injury, and that could be a setback for him and an opportunity for someone else.
Definitely an opportunity. Alabama has a lot of young offensive linemen that are vying for spots. You got guys like Alphonse Taylor, who worked at that right guard spot this morning, just a sophomore. Then you have Dominic Jackson, the junior college player, #1 junior college offensive lineman in the country last year. Gary, I think it's an opportunity for him to get more reps.
All right, it's been a busy day. That's our second practice preseason fall camp update presented by The Locker Room. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. We'll talk to you again soon.
Tighter Insider Preseason Camp is sponsored by The Locker Room.